that if the war cured the Depression, then the same problems loomed when all of the soldiers started coming back at the end of the war. And the government response was to plan.
Yes, planning was very significant, both for the period of the Second World War, when we planned the way that we would have enough labor and the way we would have enough production and the way we planned people's lives in order to meet that. The same kind of thing was true after the war, because they were expecting to have a recession after the war, particularly when you had returning people from the military. They didn't think there were going to be enough jobs to go around. So what they did was actually to say, okay, what we need to do is to plan the way that our economy is going to unfold. So they began to do this, and largely what was most significant was the development of certain kind of social institutions. So all the things we know about that are important safety nets in Canada were actually economic stabilizers as well. So we have things like unemployment insurance, which began in the early 40s. We have a national pension plan. We have the national health care system. All of these kinds of things were extremely important because whenever you did have an economic downturn, people weren't without everything. They did have some kind of social safety net that allowed them to survive. Our whole welfare scheme was as something that is related to a national kind of program that is available for everybody, even though it's run by provinces, was very, very important to keep people from starving to death, basically. Mm-hmm. So these were important initiatives, and what we have been doing gradually is whittling away all of them. Canada now has one of the worst kinds of unemployment insurance systems in the OECD countries, which is basically the wealthy, industrialized countries of the Western world. And that is really a very problematic issue. So when you become unemployed, less than, like 41% of the people who become unemployed in my province in BC are now eligible for unemployment insurance. And a lot of whole groups are virtually ineligible, like women, because they tend to be more in part-time jobs, and it takes them longer to get eligible for it. So we have big problems in this country, and the solutions have to be associated with some far-ranging thinking, the institution of new kinds of policies as well. So, for example, the point I was making today was that if you put $1 billion into some kind of program, you're going to make a lot more if you put it into daycare, 35,000 jobs, than you would if you put it into infrastructure, or what we call infrastructure, like roads and bridges, which would create 16,000 jobs. It's even worse if we give that $1 billion in a tax break, which is what we are doing in Canada, not only at the federal level, but at the provincial level. Then we only create 6,000 jobs. So it makes a big difference what we do with the money. Stimulus packages are important. We need to have them now in order to protect people, particularly the most vulnerable people, from the worst ravages of this kind of economic downturn. But we also need to plan ahead, and planning is key to that.